Yep, so the screen is on. I will start my presentation. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Murad Erilumas for your kind invitation for me to present in your event. I would also like to thank Mr. Metsu Ozol for your introduction for me to present here. Okay, so I will start now. So I have a lot of slides, and I will proceed to go through them quickly. And for the important slides, I will of course pause and speak a little bit more about those important points that I would like to highlight. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with SIASI, we are basically an association. We represent 10 member countries around the region. We have got 900 members with employees of about 400,000, membership from 27 countries since 1971. Okay, so these are some of the things we have. I think we will proceed to the next slide. Okay, so today's presentation will be covered in 5 areas. First is the background on the ASEAN steel industry today. Then we'll talk about demand side scenarios, what is going on the demand side. And then we will proceed to the supply side, on what the suppliers are doing and the strategies. Then we will talk about government actions. And then last towards forecast. If we have a little bit more time, then I can touch a little bit on RCEP. If not, then I will end here. Okay, so here we go. Now, on this first slide, it shows you the ASEAN 6 steel demand or consumption growing from 2010 at 49 million tons, stabilizing at about 80 million tons in 2018 and 2020. And when we talk about ASEAN 6, we are actually referring to the 6 countries here, which are the 6 largest ASEAN economies, starting with Indonesia. You've got Vietnam, Thailand, being the biggest steel consumers in ASEAN. Okay, so what you can see here, out of the 80 million tons, we have got the first half results here. And as you can see, first half demand for steel has gone down about 12.3% in the first half of 2020 compared to 2019. This slide here basically shows you flat and long products. Okay, so for long products, you can see that the blue area here indicates production, and the red area here are the net imports into the region. And you can see basically the long products market is basically served by local producers. On the other hand, if you were to look at a flat products market, you can see that a lot of flat products are coming into ASEAN as major imports. So production is only serving a small part of the market. A lot of it served by imports, especially in flat products of higher quality, higher grade, that is not available in ASEAN, right? Given the pandemic that has hit us, you see that the growth in the first half of this year has gone down 9.8% for long products and has gone down 14.5% for the flat products. Okay, so in terms of imports, so ASEAN imports for this 2020 first half is 21.7 million tons. You can see here the numbers from 2017 and also comparing first half and 2019 and 20. You find that the numbers are actually pretty steady in a way, basically following the economic developments of the various countries, right? And you can also see that as the pandemic hit us in ASEAN, obviously the first half import numbers are much lower than the previous year. As far as exports are concerned, it is not that stable. Exports, you see a big swing in numbers. Okay, Step by step here, you see from Indonesia, you can see that exports have started from about 2017 onwards. It kept going up, and most of these products are basically stainless steel and plates. We'll go into a bit more detail later. If you look at Malaysia, starting from about 2019, there's a huge jump in export, and that is mostly wire rods. And what is the most interesting thing here is during the pandemic, you can see that there's a big jump again. From the first half of 2019 to 2020, mostly wire rod and bars that are being exported from Malaysia. Right? In the case of Vietnam, you can see a big jump in the year 2018. And this is because that was a time when Formosa Hatin came on stream with their 7 million ton blast furnace, and they have been supplying hot rolled coils around the region. Okay, so this gives you a background on how ASEAN is going. Yeah? So now let's look at the demand side. Demand side, we'll talk about the pandemic first. I think the pandemic is something that will explain a lot of activities or non-activities that has not taken place over the last 8 months or so. You can see from this particular slide, you have ongoing challenges in Philippines and Indonesia. Right here, this is a number of infections, cumulative. Flattening of the curve, you can find it in Singapore, SG, and Thailand and Vietnam, where cases are very, very low. Myanmar and Malaysia, right, are seeing lesser surge in COVID cases, which you can see on this slide. Philippines, very high cases. In Indonesia, it's still going on. Singapore and Vietnam, Thailand, under control. You see a surge here for Myanmar and Malaysia, right? So the next slide is actually a very important slide. Okay, this is the COVID timeline of government actions in ASEAN. Starting from, you can see from Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Now, this particular slide is not supposed to be like 100% accurate, but it's, I think, a good indication of what kind of activities has gone by in ASEAN. Okay, let me just explain how it works. The colors here basically indicate the severity of the lockdowns that has been imposed in these 6 countries. Right, starting from black, number 5, which shows a very severe lockdown that people cannot go out of the house, food will be delivered, transportation shut down, industry shut down. All the way to the other end of the spectrum, where it is green, it means that a lot of rules have been relaxed. People can still go out subject to certain mass gathering restrictions and social distancing rules. Okay, so that is the severity of the lockdown. The blue lines here that you see on the screen are the cases that have been firstly detected in the countries. The dashed lines here show when the borders are closed. Right, what it shows here, just to pick up some important points, is of the 6 countries, Philippines is the one that imposed a very severe lockdown on the main island of Luzon, which is the industrial center of Philippines, which is the North Island. You can see over here, the black area. Right. The other regions of Visayas and Mindanao is sorry. Basically, that is certain regional impact over here. Okay, so Philippines has got the most severe lockdown, and if you look at other countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, these are what we call partial lockdown in whatever terminology that they use during the second quarter mainly. You can see from here. What has made Vietnam very successful, as you can see, that from the day of the first case, until the day they started to go after every single province, bit by bit, and lock down the province to control the COVID. Right. So Vietnam has been very successful because they have taken a lot of very quick action, very early stages of the pandemic. right? Whereas the other countries took a little bit longer, right? So second quarter is going to be an exceptionally bad time for the ASEAN economies because of all this lockdown, right? As you can look at the colors become lighter as you go through time, showing that the restrictions are being relaxed over time when the countries felt that COVID was being under control. However, in certain countries, they also found that there was a resurgence, and therefore they continue to also lock down the country again. That happened in Philippines sometime in August, also happened in September in Indonesia. Okay, so only 3 countries, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, are looking at opening their borders very cautiously. They have been receiving a very limited number of visitors from China and other parts of Asia, right? So this one explains a lot of things and a lot of slides that will come after this one. So this is gives you a good picture of what's going on. Another thing that is important here is if you can look at what I've written down here next to the countries, an asterisk. Now this asterisk here, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, means those countries did not shut down their construction industry nor the steel industry. Okay, so they had controls, but the industries were still running. Whereas for Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore, everything had to close. Okay, very important slide that tells you what is going to go on in the next few slides. Okay, how are the ASEAN economies doing? Right, so you can see here the green columns, that is Q2, second quarter. Right, as you can see, I said Q2 is going to be bad, and it was bad. Right, so you can see Indonesia, used to be growing at about 5% per quarter, right, has gone down 5% the other way around. Okay, Malaysia down -17%, Philippines -16.9%, Singapore double digit, Thailand double digit, and Vietnam is the only one that has remained positive all 6 quarters. Okay, why? You saw from my previous chart, right? Early controls that help to control the pandemic. Okay, now let's take a look at next one, the construction industry. Again, Indonesia was growing at about 5-6%. Then it was hit. Things slowed down a lot, followed by Malaysia. But Malaysia was not facing a good economy even before the pandemic, but it went really bad at a contraction of about 44.5%. Philippines is the same. The lockdown is very severe. It went down very badly for 2 quarters in excess of 30%. Singapore is the worst of all. Everything was shut down because of the outbreak in workers' dormitories. Right, so the workers basically service the construction industry, the manufacturing industries. They all have to shut down. Okay, so what was interesting again, if you look here, this is Vietnam, right? Consistent growth, expansion in construction sector throughout all the 6 quarters from 2019 to third quarter. Sorry, this is 7 quarters up to Q3 of 2020. What is an interesting point to note here is in Thailand, where on the second quarter, you're supposed to have a very big impact from the pandemic, from the chart, but they had an expansion in the construction project. Okay, this is very interesting because Thailand has actually taken a lot of steps to quickly so-called restart and move their projects so that they can kickstart the economy. Okay, so the issues that have been faced by ASEAN construction industry, projects are stalled due to lockdowns, diversion of funds from projects to fight COVID. That's why you can see a lot of growth has been stopped. Outbreak in workers' dorms, foreign workers and all that. Disruption in supply chain in terms of labor supply and materials. Mobility issues where logistics and everything came on a standstill. Right? Of course, you have lower site productivity due to all the SOPs, standard operating process, ending up with a lot of cash flow funding and cost issues to the contractors. Okay, and projects were being reviewed and some of them were cancelled. Okay, so this is a construction industry from ASEAN. Next one is the automotive industry. You know, I think everybody says the automotive industry is a major victim of COVID. But actually, I think the construction industry is the bigger one. Here you see, while the auto industry has been hit, you know, but it seems to be going back to a recovery a lot faster than the other industries, right? You're looking at about 350, 370 car production a day, a month, in all the ASEAN countries, down to 50,000. You know, that's a major drop. That happened sometime in April. For you to understand what is a relative size, the production center in ASEAN lies in Thailand, right? Where they produce 50% of the vehicles in the six largest ASEAN countries, followed by Indonesia and then Malaysia. Okay, right. So this is what you can see. You know how the auto industry has been hit, but it's coming up to something a big improvement from the bad days. But it's still at the end of September something like about 20% lower than the previous year, right? So why does it happen? You got job losses during the pandemic. You got lockdown. People can't go anywhere. Cars are actually high capex items, and of course, there's a lot of uncertainties, in the future that stop people from buying motor vehicles. Okay, so this is the auto industry. If now we move back to the manufacturing sector, the manufacturing sector tells a little different story. Over here. Indonesia, again, it has been growing at about 3-4%. Then it got hit by the pandemic. It went down to -4%. Malaysia is the same. But Malaysia saw an expansion in the last quarter, Q3. I'll explain why. Philippines, everything went down, first, second, third quarter. Singapore was up and down. Okay, and Thailand all down, whereas as expected, Vietnam continued to remain positive in terms of manufacturing growth. Now, why would you see a positive in Singapore and a positive in Malaysia? These are basically for electronics and medical goods, right? Here, there was already an expansion in the first quarter of 2020 in Singapore. When the shutdown came, the whole thing was closed. But as they open up, there was a huge demand for pharmaceutical goods and electronics. That's why the manufacturing sector expanded very rapidly again. Same thing applies to Malaysia, but at a lower scale. Okay, so this is the manufacturing sector. If you look at the manufacturing PMI, which came from IHS Markit, and you look at how the countries where there's there's a huge contraction and there's a slight contraction and an improvement and all that. Now all these are easily explained from the initial slide I showed you, the COVID timeline. Where they lock down again, you see the chart will go down, the line will go down. When they reopen, the line will come up. Okay, so that particular COVID timeline explains all these things about what is going on. Okay, so this is on the demand side. So now let's take a look at the supply side to understand who are these players and what are they doing during the pandemic. Now I have classified the steel players as belonging to 4 areas. Number one are the domestic supplier, the indigenous suppliers. Basically what they do, they have a significant local presence. Of course, in the bad times, everybody is back to basics, right? You reduce costs, you try to be more productive, you look for export market, and you need to cope with the new SOP. Okay. The second group of people are basically the foreign investors who have come into the region. These are the domestic players with very strong external links, right? And these players with an advantage of these external links, they can actually seek export markets more effectively because of their connection. Okay, so the third, then I will take a look at the imports and see what are the other suppliers looking at when they are looking at coming into the ASEAN market. And I touch a little bit on the overcapacity issues with respect to potential investors coming in. Okay, so this is a heat map of the ASEAN steel exports from January to August 2020. right? ASEAN 6 countries, you know, I always talk about ASEAN 6 countries. You can see here, ASEAN 6 refers to Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Whereas ASEAN 4 refers to Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. Okay, so I have split them up, you know. Okay, what does it tell us here? It tells us here that 90% of the trade, or the export from ASEAN countries are staying around the Asia-Pacific region. Okay, the bulk of the export of our goods from ASEAN are back within the region, within the ASEAN region. Now that is 32%. And because China is opening up with a lot of need for semi-finished products and all those, that's where the exports have gone. Okay, and the others are the smaller areas where export are going to. So what has ASEAN been exporting around the region? Number one, you can see here, semi-finished products. Slabs and billets have been exported to China, right? Number 2 and 3, long products, bars and wire rods. You can see here, you know, it's about 19 to 12% here for long products. 2 reasons for those. Number 1 is because there is market for these products in China. And number 2, due to overcapacity situations in certain countries, there is no choice but to export those products. Now after that, you have got hot roll coils and plates. And then of course, the other one is scrap. So most of them are just going around ASEAN and China region. Okay, that forms the bulk of the steel players' exports from ASEAN. Okay, so this gives you a feel of what kind of products are going around from ASEAN itself. Now, if you look at the details of what exactly is going by, you know, like you know, I told Mr. Ozol that I have a lot of details here. You know, I think there are certain important points to note here. I mentioned billets and I mentioned slabs. Okay, billets are from Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. Slabs, Indonesia and Vietnam. Okay, the high carbon semis are mostly from Vietnam. Stainless steel, obviously from Indonesia. I will explain a bit more a bit later. Carbon steel bars, mostly from Malaysia. Wire rod from Malaysia. Right, a little bit from Vietnam. Plates are from Indonesia and Singapore. Singapore is a trading hub anyway. Stainless steel, hot roll coils from Indonesia. Singapore here again because they are a trading hub. A little bit from Vietnam. Coral steel, stainless steel, obviously again from Indonesia. Some from Malaysia and carbon steel from Vietnam. Okay, so behind these numbers, what you can actually understand is that a lot of the companies here are linked to China. Okay, it's a very important point here. You know, if you look at billets from Malaysia, okay, billets from Malaysia comes from Eastern Steel. It comes from Anju. It comes from Alliance Steel. You know, and all these players, you know, have links with China. Okay. Similarly, slabs are the same. Indonesia, most of the slabs are, I would expect them to be mostly from Tsingshan Steel. All the stainless steel products, hot roll coils, cold roll coils, and other stainless semis from Indonesia, it only comes from one company. It's Tsingshan Steel. Okay, the Chinese company that has become the lowest cost producer of stainless steel in the world, right? So they are doing that. Okay, so the scenario here shows you that, you know, those companies, those players who have got very strong links with China are able to tap on those relationship and connections to sell back to China. And it's actually shown here. Okay, now what are people looking at inside ASEAN? You know, so there are players looking at ASEAN. You know, and I'm sure, you know, Turkey is one of them. You know, you'll be eyeing, you know, where are the products going into and what exactly are needed. You know, okay. So what you can see here, a lot of product coming into ASEAN. Again, whatever that is imported into ASEAN, a lot of it comes from within the Asia-Pacific region, 83%. Okay. And what you see here, the biggest imports into ASEAN is hot roll coil. right? And coming from other Asia Pacific, now this is who? Usually Japan, Korea, Taiwan, okay? These are the players who are specializing in very high-end flat products, items which are high quality, high value add for the automotive industry or other special steel coming from Japan, Korea in particular. This is the area. Hot rolled coils. Okay. Then the others are, just pretty small, not very big. Okay. So the players coming into ASEAN are looking at these products to sell, and this is how they have gotten inside. Okay. Now this is an interesting slide showing the history of China exports, to ASEAN. Okay, I'm not sure if you remember, but I think those of you who have gone through this period of about 2014 to 2017, I call it the days of the export tsunami from China. Where I think that those times the export from China was ranging around about 100 to 110 million tons worldwide. It has hit ASEAN pretty badly. And what is interesting from this particular slide is, the peak is over here. Of course, it came down because a lot of countries took anti-dumping action against China, and it has come down to stabilize at around 30% of China export that comes to ASEAN. So over time, especially during January to September of this year, you can see that the export from China continue to decline. First half to first half, you're looking at a decline of about 23%. Right. What is most important about this slide is on actually at the bottom here. If you look at this slide, you can see a trend of how Chinese companies are adjusting their export strategies to get into the ASEAN market. Right. So in the past, you can see a lot of long products are coming in. So that the red area, these are long products. Okay, so during the export tsunami times, we get hit by all the long products, basically wire rod and bars. Okay, and that's where you see the surge in imports here. But over time, their strategies have changed. They have adjusted their export products, to look at which are the segments where they can cover the gaps, and these are basically coated steel and hot rolled coil, most of the time. Okay, so this is where China is, and I think it is a very good example of how the Chinese have been very flexible in exporting their products out of China and looking at where the gaps they could fill. Okay, so this is a chart to show you how it shifts. Now Turkey, I added this slide because I noticed there's a lot of delegates from Turkey over here. So what has Turkey been importing, been exporting into ASEAN? You can see it's not many. It's basically bars, wire rod, sections. Okay, so you're coming. The Turkish suppliers are coming in with light products, which are essentially long products, which I also highlighted earlier. It's largely supplied by the domestic market. So you're in great competition over here. Okay, whereas China, they have shifted, into areas where they can sell. Okay, so this is what you see from 2015 to 2020. This is 9 months. Right? This is 9 months, and this is a monthly import from ASEAN. ASEAN import from Turkey. Right? Again, it's mostly section, bars, wire rods, all long products, right? And in a very ad hoc sales of hot rolled coils. Okay, and interestingly to note, Turkey's export to ASEAN is basically focused on 2 countries, Malaysia and Singapore. For your bars and wire rod, that's it. Okay, your hot rolled coils go to Indonesia. Okay, so these are the statistics that I have been digging through, and because of SteelOrbis being more of a Turkish event, so I have put in this slide for your information. Okay, so I think the Turkish suppliers should also take a look, at what the Chinese has been doing, like I've shown in my previous slide, and also take a look at what the ASEAN economies really need, and of course from there you can start re-strategizing what you can do to get even more into the ASEAN market. Okay, so this is where we are. Okay, now the last set of suppliers are the investments. I've presented some of this last year in the SteelOrbis event. This is an update, and the update shows, I think that time when I presented, you're looking at something like 60 million tons of excess capacity. Now it has gone up to 67.7 million tons as of July 2020. And as of October, over here, Tersin Steel, right now based in Indonesia, has announced an increase of capacity from 3.5 million tons to 6 million tons to be implemented by 2021 December, and to 20 million tons in, I don't know when. Okay, so people are very excited about ASEAN, but I think we are going to be in a lot of trouble if all these projects go ahead. Okay, now on the next slide, now this is a case study. It is a live case study showing you the impact of a new entrant in an overcapacity market. It is a live example. It's happening right now. Okay, and it's an example that is based on what is going on in Malaysia. Okay, so what happens is in Malaysia, the new entrant, which is basically a blast furnace, came in with a 3.5 million ton capacity of long products, same products as what everybody is producing. Enter the market, fought like anything. Prices went down below international prices, and of course, what do they do next? They export everything. Okay, but the damage to the industry. This chart here basically shows you the adjusted profit before tax for 6 listed long products producer in Malaysia. Okay, and these are the 6 biggest. Okay, and this is where you see the profitability of the business. The moment this guy comes in, it went haywire for 6 quarters. The reason why I chose 6 quarters, because I wanted it to end, this analysis, I wanted it to end before the pandemic. So first quarter of 2020 is inside here, but not after that. Okay, because the pandemic came in, it would distort the picture of the losses. So the losses that we have found out was about 1 billion ringgit Malaysian for the 6 companies, which is something like $224 million US dollars over a period of 18 months. Now, this is what happens when a new entrant come into a market that is in overcapacity, then you fight like crazy and everybody loses money. Okay, now there is a full case study which I do not have time to present here, but if you are interested or any of your delegates are interested, you may go to the Global Forum stakeholder event website. You can download it over there. Okay, so the full case study is over there. It will show you that this company came in, couldn't sell, everybody was fighting, and it was exporting all over the place, disturbing the entire region, and losing money along the way, and that's the final result of what has happened. So those of you who are interested, please go and download this presentation, which was made in July 2020 at the Global Forum. Okay, it's a very interesting life study. Okay, now government actions. What has been happening here? Now, this is an important chart showing the historical impact that has hit ASEAN since 1995. During a lot of discussions with the people that I have touched base with, a lot of people cite the global financial crisis as being the worst crisis they've ever faced, right? But not in ASEAN, right? Global financial crisis, yes, it's a problem, but not really a problem. Okay, but the biggest problem of all was the Asian financial crisis. Right. So for those of you who are aware of what the Asian financial crisis was about, it was a time when the currencies were hit and everything was went downhill. It started with Thailand, it hit South Korea, hit Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, and of course Philippines. Only Vietnam is not involved because they were just opening up the economy at that point in time. Now, what it tells you here is that the green line is basically the apparent steel consumption, talking about how many millions of tons. The dark blue bars are basically the GDP of all the 6 ASEAN countries added together. what you can see is that the moment ASEAN financial crisis hit, GDP went down, right? The real GDP growth was going at 3.8% in 1997. And by 1998, it went down negative 7.3%. Okay, right? And then it came up again the following year because ASEAN governments were putting a lot of projects to kickstart their economy again, right? Apparent consumption of steel, you can see that 97 was down a little bit because of the early impact of the crisis, and then down 40%. 40%, big number, right? But because of the government's effort, you can see a jump back up to about 23% in 1999. Now, this crisis is a very severe crisis that took about 6 years average, but for some countries, it took roughly about 0 to 16 years. 0 being Vietnam, because they were not affected by the crisis. The rest of the region took minimum 5 years, 8 years to recover from the Asian financial crisis. If you look at the next phenomena that happened, that was SARS in 2003, you can see real GDP growth, nothing was hit, nothing went wrong, right? Apparent consumption of steel, yes, it went down, but it was still expanding, right? And years to recover, average about 1 year. Okay, that was what it is. Right? Global financial crisis hit in 2009. You take a look, yeah, a little bit impacted, but no big deal. You know, economies were still expanding, right? And then of course, because the global trade is so well connected with the ASEAN economies, yes, steel consumption was down, right? Because there are a lot of foreign investments around the region, you know, which are affected by the global financial crisis, which of course affected the banking system in the US most of the time. Okay. One of the things I like to emphasize here in particular is the reason why the ASEAN financial crisis was so severe is because, number one, the currency fell. You know, so basically, whatever money you borrow, double or triple overnight. It put a lot of stress in the banking system. It put a lot of stress in the financial reserves of the country. You know, and therefore it took such a long time to recover. Okay. But since 1998 onwards, the ASEAN governments have actually capitalized their own financial capability a lot more, right? So the banking system was strengthened. A lot of countries built their reserves, so they have a lot of money, you know, for ASEAN. And then now, I mean, if they choose to borrow money now, it's not because they have no money, but because it's cheaper to borrow now. Okay. So this is again another important chart to show you the historical impacts of the crisis that has gone by, right? And the Chinese stock market turbulence is just a little blip. Countries that were affected were those that had links to Chinese investments. But apart from that, everything was still growing. Real GDP was still growing. It wasn't really a problem at all, because all these times, the banking system and the financial system of the ASEAN economies were already restructured, and they were already capable of withstanding a lot of external shocks. Very important slides here. Okay. Now, so this one is government actions because of COVID, right? So up to September, ASEAN government have actually announced a total of about 363 billion US dollars in stimulus packages, right? And you can see here, these are the announced numbers. Indonesia, 58 billion. Malaysia, 75. Philippines, 62. Singapore, 65. Thailand, 70. Vietnam doesn't need to do that so much. It's only about 24 billion. And Vietnam's case is because it is a newly developing country, right? So their extent of reserves is also not that high. Okay, right? So what you see in words here are basically the description by the government, you know, a commitment to use infrastructure projects to kickstart the economy starting from next year. I think this year is a bit too late for everybody to come on stream to try to rescue the economies, except for the green boxes here. Thailand and Vietnam, green, yeah, they're heading the right way. Singapore on the way. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, well, it takes a little bit more time. Okay, so this is a picture of the ASEAN government actions that have been announced to date. Okay, now a bit about forecast. The forecast for the ASEAN 6 economies, I mean, for those people who have been following forecasts, every month that goes by, you can see that the forecasts keep going down. Do you notice that? Because why? Everything depends on the pandemic, the ability to control pandemic. Okay, so in June, World Bank forecasted, for the GDP growth for ASEAN around this rate. Of course, these are still very positive rates compared to now. IMF has also reduced forecast in October 2022. Now, ASEAN government themselves have announced sometime in this period of time a big drop, with the exception of Vietnam. Vietnam is looking at a +2.5% growth in 2020 and a +6.5% in 2021. Right. So the rest of the countries they're looking at, I mean, Indonesia now, because Indonesia has a very strong domestic market. Right. Their exports to GDP is actually amongst the lowest in the ASEAN countries. So they are reliant on the domestic industry, and therefore they can withstand the external shocks from external demand, right? So they are expecting a slight contraction in economy and a swing to a positive 5.5% in 2021, right? So Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand, you're looking at a 4.56% contraction, and then whereas for the growth in all these economies is supposed to be an upswing, ranging from about 3-4% up to about 7% in 2021. Okay, so this is a forecast for ASEAN economies in terms of GDP. If we were to look at the sectors, economic sectors, you will find that the forecast from global data, you're looking at all these numbers for construction industry, plus 0.5. Malaysia will go down about minus 8.8%. Philippines minus 9.2% contraction. Singapore is the worst at minus 17.8%. Just to tell everybody, Singapore is one of the nations that fully relies on external demand, on exports, export market and tourism and things like that. So they are very badly affected. Thailand will be construction will be down about 8.8%. That's what they say. What you can see from the numbers, the Thai construction numbers are actually going up. Vietnam is a positive 5.5. Fitch also has something along those lines, not too different. What is important here is for the automotive sales. Okay. So each country's automotive sales are looking at the end of the day, a contraction in the demand for every single country, ranging from about 17% in Vietnam all the way to about 42% contraction in Indonesia. Okay, so the biggest market for automotive is actually Thailand. You're looking at again a contraction of 37%. Okay, so what do we see in terms of steel? We are looking at right now 2018 80 million. We are looking at something like about 7.3 to 7.5 million tons for 2020 estimate. We actually do not know how to estimate 2021 at the moment because there's so much uncertainties going on, right? So you see actually there's contraction in all countries as far as steel consumption is concerned. Okay, if we were to compare against the forecast that was done by World Steel Association, excluding Singapore, 7.3 million tons in 2020 and 77.3 million tons in 2021, the numbers are actually slightly higher than what we have forecasted here. Okay, so these are the forecasts for the ASEAN 6 economies for steel. Now, Mr. Ozol, do you have a little bit more time or shall I stop here?
Okay, it's better to finish. Okay, you can say something more if you want to.
No, I think maybe I can stop here. That's fine. Okay, so also I would like to end my presentation here. I do hope that you find the presentation useful, and I hope it will be part of your strategies. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Okay, Mr. Yeoh, thank you very much for this very nice and very extensive presentation. Before passing to the question section, I must go back to the poll, which was interrupted, as you know, because of technical problems. But Mr. Yeoh, may I request for you to stop screen sharing?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, quickly. The poll question was, what country will be the main driver of steel demand in ASEAN in 2021-2022? And we had 4 choices. Choice A, Vietnam. Choice B, Vietnam and Indonesia. Choice C, Indonesia. And choice D, the Philippines. Okay, can we see the results? Okay, what we see here, can I read? Okay, thank you very much. So 50% the audience says selects the choice B, 53% actually. That is Vietnam and Indonesia. And then 35% choice A, Vietnam will remain the key growth market. And C, 6% Indonesia, and 6% D, the Philippines. Thank you very much. So we must go to the question section, okay? So how can I find it? Did we have the questions? Okay, let me look at the first question from Murat. Okay. Is regional construction growth sustainable? What do you think, Mr. Yeoh? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You know, this kind of question, I would have to explain it in parts. It's a bit difficult to explain if you look at ASEAN as one block, because you got different growth in different countries and all that. Okay, so the answer is yes, regional construction growth is sustainable because the main driver of the main countries that will be driving construction growth is number one is Vietnam. Vietnam has been growing very rapidly, and you can see they have controlled COVID very well. So therefore, Vietnam is expected to grow. I also mentioned earlier, okay, let me finish this one first. The other thing about the other country that is also in that similar situation, like I said, Thailand, right? Thailand has a positive growth in construction sector in second quarter and the third quarter of the year, right? Because they are putting a lot of effort in their infrastructure projects. And I have also mentioned during the slide on the historical crisis that has happened in ASEAN. So that was a big lesson for ASEAN governments, and the ASEAN governments have always turned to public infrastructure investments to kickstart their economy. Okay, so the answer is yes. I think the construction growth for economies that are growing, such as Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, yes, these are sustainable because they are developing countries. They need a lot of infrastructure growth. That's number one. And number two, for an immediate spike, a kick to get the economy started, the construction industry is going to boom next year. Okay, and I think this also, then the other countries, such as Singapore and Malaysia, you do not expect construction to come back so fast because they also depend on internal issues as well as external demand. That will take some time to come back.
Okay, thank you. And a question from Shankar Ramnarayan. Looking at the forecasts, it appears that most ASEAN will at best return to pre-COVID days before they show growth. What are the major drivers of steel growth post-COVID for ASEAN?
Okay.
Major drivers of steel growth.
Yes. So if we were to look, I mean, I did not present a slide. If you were to look at the structure of the steel consuming industries in ASEAN, you'll find that something like 71% is from the construction sector. Okay, the next biggest one is about 11 or 12% is from the automotive sector, right? And following that, it's a shipbuilding sector, right? And followed by the industrial machinery, equipment, and all those things, right? So with 71% of the steel in ASEAN being consumed by the construction sector, obviously that is where it's going to come back.
As everywhere else, okay, we see it. Okay, SteelOrbis asked the question, can you please explain in few words Vietnam's expected growth? Is this due to trade with North America?
No. Nope, not at all.
Not at all?
Vietnam, no, not at all. Vietnam's growth, again, here I'm referring to steel. I suppose it's about steel, right? Okay, so if it is about steel, the answer is no. The steel sector, again, Vietnam is also, if you look at the structure of steel consuming sectors in Vietnam, it's something like 80+%, very close to 90% of the steel consumed being for the construction sector, which has got nothing to do with the United States. Okay, but Vietnam will benefit from the shift in global supply chain for manufacturing activities that is moving out of China into ASEAN.
And the last questions by Stephen Sousa. Why ASEAN is not targeting to export to India, and why depending mostly on China? That's the question.
Okay, those people who try to export to China, they have a Ministry of Steel there, So China, India is a closed market. They do not actually encourage a lot of imports into India, and the government is very strong in protecting the local industries as far as the steel industry is concerned. So it's very hard to get in.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Yeoh, for sharing your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have highly appreciated your time. And for me, I learned a lot. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.